2022 college football season is finally here. Week 0 is upon us. We have Northwestern taking on Nebraska. This game is going to be played this upcoming Saturday, neutral site setting in Dublin, Ireland, with a 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff on Fox. Nebraska currently is a 13.5-point favorite going into this matchup. These were two of the worst teams in the Big Ten West last season. Both Northwestern and Nebraska went 3-9 last season. You look at Scott Frost. This most definitely is a must-win game for him. He's going into his 5th year as the head coach of Nebraska Football. And Cornhusker fans have to keep saying, what do we have to do to win these tightly contested games? Because since Scott Frost has been the head coach of Nebraska, 20 out of 29 of their losses have been decided by 8 points or less. So what does Nebraska have to do to come out on the winning end of these one-possession games? Now, Scott Frost pretty much cleaned house on his coaching staff. There were a lot of new faces on this coaching staff. However, I'm really excited about the addition of offensive coordinator Mark Whipple. Now, Mark Whipple was previously with Pittsburgh. He was really monumental in the rise of Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett now is with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was the only quarterback drafted in the first round of the previous 2022 NFL draft. So if you are a Nebraska fan, you're hoping that Mark Whipple can bring some of that magic from Pittsburgh that he used on Kenny Pickett and sprinkle a little bit of that magical powder on Casey Thompson. Now, Casey Thompson, I think, is a better quarterback than what a lot of people give him credit for. I don't really think he was all that bad at Texas. As a matter of fact, I thought he was one of the better quarterbacks in that conference. So you replace him with Adrian Martinez, which Adrian Martinez pretty much has been Nebraska football for over the last couple of years. The dude is a really good true threat quarterback, dual threat quarterback. However, I just felt like Adrian Martinez and Scott Frost, they just really weren't a great fit for each other. So it's good that both Casey Thompson and Adrian Martinez get fresh starts with new programs. And I definitely feel like Casey Thompson going into this game could have a really good day through the air for Nebraska. Because when you look at Mark Whipple's offenses for Pittsburgh, yeah, I mean, they could do damage on the ground, but most of the damage last season from Pittsburgh's offense came because of how potent the passing attack was. Pittsburgh had a really good group of wide receivers. We already know what Kenny Pickett did, and the offensive line was also pretty solid as well. You look at Nebraska going into this game, you're going against a Northwestern defense that has some question marks when it comes to how well the front seven is going to perform. So for Casey Thompson, you have good mobility, you have a pretty solid arm, and good accuracy. I'm really excited to see how he performs in this game. Now, for Northwestern, offensively, if you're a fan of the Wildcats, you're hoping that this offense can at least get to 20 points this season. Because last year, Northwestern only scored more than 20 points 2 times. Literally, they only were able to crack plus 20 points in 2 matchups that they played in last season. Their offense was absolutely abysmal. And they have concerns when it comes to the quarterback position because they don't know who their starting quarterback is going to be. It's either going to be Ryan Helinski, who started in a few games for Northwestern last year, but outside of the win against Rutgers, he wasn't really impressive in any of those outings. And then you have Brendan Sullivan, who we haven't really seen take a single snap of college ball at all, at least in an official game for Northwestern. So the quarterback position is a huge concern for Northwestern. And even if they do end up naming their starter, you don't know how good the quarterback play is going to be for Northwestern. However, I think when it comes to Nebraska being able to avoid an upset in this game, they have to be able to slow down this rushing attack of Northwestern. Because Northwestern is one of those programs that they're like Iowa and Wisconsin. You know that their offenses aren't going to be anything flashy. Their offenses are probably going to be predicated on them having really good play when it comes to their offensive line and being able to run the football down your throat and control time of possession. You look at Northwestern, they have two really good running backs in Evan Hull and Cam Porter. Now, Evan Hull pretty much was the workload for this offense pretty much in a sense, or he was the workhorse for this offense. He had 196 carries for 1,009 rushing yards. He averaged 5.1 yards per attempt, had 7 touchdowns. He also was a little bit of a factor in the passing game for Northwestern as well. So Evan Hull pretty much did everything for this Northwestern offense. But you have Cam Porter coming back. Now, Cam Porter was huge for what Northwestern did during that 2020 season. Remember, 2020 is when they went 7-2 and they went to the Big Ten championship game where they lost to Ohio State. But Cam Porter had a breakout season in 2020 because that was his true freshman campaign. The offense kind of ran through him in a sense. And many Northwestern fans were excited about what he could do in 2021. But unfortunately, his 2021 season got cut short due to an injury that kept him from playing in any regular season games last season. So I think that the two-headed duo of Cam Porter and Evan Hull is going to be really big for Northwestern this season. And it pretty much is going to be the heart and soul of their offense, because regardless of how great the quarterback play is, Northwestern simply doesn't really have a lot of great options in the passing game. So I definitely think that Hull and Porter are going to be the two main focal points of this offense. And if Nebraska can slow down this ground game of Northwestern, they're going to have a very good chance of being able to win this game. And also for Northwestern, to have success offensively, they have to avoid putting themselves in third and long situations. So they have to be able to win on the early downs, because if they find themselves in 3rd and 7 or any 3rd and medium or 3rd and long situations, they're at a disadvantage, because you know the weapons aren't really there in the passing game. You don't really know what you're getting out of the quarterback play. So you have to be able to make sure that you can put yourself in 3rd and manageable situations where you can still have the option of being able to get the football to your talented halfbacks. And then when you look at Northwestern's defense, now I do think their secondary should be pretty good, but the front seven is a little bit of a question mark. Now, their defensive line wasn't that great last season. They weren't great when it came to getting consistent pressure on the quarterback, and they weren't great when it came to stopping the run. Now, they do have a lot of guys who they acquired from the transfer portal. They also have one guy who returning, who I tried to pronounce his name, but it just doesn't roll off the tongue right. But I think their defensive line is going to be pretty solid. However, you know, anytime you have to fill some needs through the transfer portal, you don't really know how great the play from that position is going to be. So the success of their defensive line is mostly going to hinge on how successful they have been on being able to get transfers to come in from the transfer portal, being able to be developed and producing at a high level. So we're really going to get an answer to that this year with all of the new guys that Northwestern acquired from the transfer portal that are going to have big roles on this defensive line. Now, linebacker is something that is a concern. However, many Northwestern fans probably aren't really all that concerned about the linebacker play, simply for the fact that even though they did lose their leading tackler from last year, you do have Bryce Gallagher who does return. And you do have some new faces at linebacker. However, linebacker has always been a position that Northwestern has gotten really good play out of. So I think overall, when you look at Northwestern's defense, you definitely have to keep your eyes out on their defensive line, because if their defensive line still struggles like how they did last season, then I think that Nebraska is going to put up a lot of points on Northwestern's defense. And really, Northwestern's defense has to play well as a whole, because that kind of has always been Northwestern football. The identity of Northwestern football has been being able to have good play in the trenches up front, having a good rushing attack, and on top of that, having a very lights out defense. So if their defense isn't able to get consistent pressure on Casey Thompson, this secondary is going to be in for a very long game. And on top of that, it's going to be a very long afternoon for Northwestern fans. Now, offensively for Nebraska, their offense, I think, was pretty solid last season for the most part. The thing with them is that they didn't really know how to get the ball into the end zone when they got into the red zone. And neither one of these two teams had good red zone offenses in general. Northwestern's red zone offense was 111th in America last season, and Northwestern's offense was worse. They were 123rd in red zone scoring. So the key to Nebraska having success in the red zone, really, I just think depends on how good the offensive line is going to be this year. Because I think when you have a good offensive line and you have guys who are able to clear holes up front for you in the ground game, it makes it a little bit easier once you get inside the red zone. Because once you get inside the red zone, ideally you want to try to punch the football in by running the football, because it's a lot harder to throw in the red zone since the field is condensed and pretty much the majority of your playbook gets cut in half. So the amount of plays that you can run in the red zone are a little bit more limited. So I think for Nebraska to have success in the red zone, I think you do have the dual threat ability of Casey Thompson there, but I think the fact that the offensive line is going to be improved, that's going to help out that run game. So I think that the run game should help Nebraska be a little bit better in the red zone this season with the improvements of the offensive line. And then on top of that, you look at the fact that Northwestern still may not have a good red zone defense, because their red zone defense was in the middle of the pack last season. Same thing with Nebraska's. But at the same time, with Northwestern having a little bit of an overhaul when it comes to their front seven, normally teams that are good inside the red zone normally have good play from their defensive line and their linebackers in the red zone. We don't really know how great the front seven play is going to be for Northwestern this year. Meanwhile, you look at Nebraska, their defensive line and their front seven situation is a little bit more situated compared to Northwestern's. So I think that Nebraska is going to be the team that has more success in the red zone in this matchup, which is going to be really big, because if this game does get to the fourth quarter, you do like Nebraska's chances. Even though they haven't been great in the fourth quarter games under Scott Frost, you do like the fact that Northwestern's offense is going to struggle to put up points. And it doesn't really matter if Northwestern has good quarterback play or not. Northwestern just simply is one of those teams that their offenses normally aren't better than average at best. So I think with Northwestern's offense pretty much going to struggle in this game, I think that this is going to be a matchup that if it does go into the fourth quarter, if you're a Nebraska fan, you should still feel pretty confident about your chances. Now, I think for Nebraska, you have to avoid letting this game get into the fourth quarter, or at least late into the fourth quarter. So if Northwestern goes into the fourth quarter and it's 5 minutes left and they're only down, let's say 24-20, Northwestern is in a pretty comfortable spot, because that's how they like to win games. However, you look at Nebraska, this really should be a game that if Nebraska allows it to be close in the fourth quarter, they most definitely could lose, simply for the fact that I think with Northwestern, if this game is close, it shows you that Northwestern's defense is going to be pretty good, or at least their defense is going to be good enough to keep them in this game, which means that they probably forced a turnover or two. And the second thing it shows you is that, Nebraska still has some things that they have to get situated by themselves on the defense side of the football, such as, how great is the defensive line play going to be when you're matched up against a offensive line that is as good as what Northwestern's is going to be this year. Your defensive line is going to have to be able to have some good depth, be able to keep guys fresh. another thing is this. If Nebraska can't really go into this game and just blow Northwestern out by, the third quarter, it still allows Northwestern to run the kind of offense that they're accustomed to running, which is running the football, getting on the center. And I think for the Cornhuskers, if you can come in this game and you can get out to a comfortable lead early, it's going to force Northwestern to have to play a style of football that they're accustomed to playing, and that is having to throw the football to win games. So I really think for Nebraska, if they want to win this game, they can't let it be decided by the fourth quarter. They have to be able to come into the fourth quarter and at least be up a good amount of scores. I say at least 17 points will be comfortable, because for Nebraska, the kind of leads that they've given up over the last couple of years, I don't think a 10-point lead would be enough. So I think a 17-point lead going into the fourth quarter will have you feeling pretty comfortable. But if this is a one-possession game, Northwestern would be the last team that I would want to be in a one-possession game with. But if it does get to that point, your defense should be able to help you pull it out, simply for the fact that I don't think that Northwestern's offense is going to be all that great in this matchup. Another thing that Nebraska has to be able to do is they have to be able to force takeaways. Nebraska was one of the worst teams in college football when it came to forcing turnovers. A team like Northwestern that's going to struggle to move the ball efficiently, you have to make sure that you can steal extra possessions away from them. Because if you're able to take away extra possessions from a already struggling offense, you put them at an even bigger disadvantage if you're able to convert those turnovers into points. So I think for Nebraska, for them to win this game, they have to make sure that they can force a turnover or two. On top of that, they have to make sure that they can keep Northwestern from being in third and short situations, force them to be in third and long situations where they have to throw the football to beat you. And then offensively, I really think inside of the red zone, they should be able to have some success there, simply for the fact that, Northwestern's red zone defense still probably won't be all that great, simply for the fact that they have so much turnover when it comes to their front seven. So the team that I'm going to take to win this game, I'm taking Nebraska. I think that Northwestern could have a chance of pulling off the upset if they can get this game to the fourth quarter. However, I just don't think their offense is going to be able to do enough to win this matchup. You see, even if Northwestern's defense can keep them in this game, I just don't think that their offense is going to be able to sustain enough drives to put points up on the board when it matters. So I'm going to take Nebraska to win this game. 27-17 is going to be my final score prediction in this game. I'm going to take Nebraska to win outright, but I'm going to take Northwestern to cover, because I do think that Northwestern's defense is going to be pretty solid this year. However, I think that this offense is going to continue to hold them back. And although this is going to be a good defense that I think Nebraska is going to have this year, I do think the fact that Northwestern's offense being so Northwestern is going to make Nebraska's defense look even better. So give me Northwestern for the points. Give me Nebraska outright to win.